Hey Rick, how you doing?
Good morning, Keith. I'm doing great. How are you in New York?
Man, you know I stay out here quite a bit, right?
Yeah, it's amazing you can commute so well and seamlessly. You do a spin class and then you're back in Central Park.
There you go, man. Yeah, and it's a good life, man. It's a good life. I suggest it for everyone. But Rick, man, I thought we do a podcast entitled "Cheer on Others' Success," other people's success.
Oh, cool.
Sound
Okay.
good? So
Yeah.
I'll tell you what inspired it, and then we can run from there. What inspired it is that there's this athlete in the NBA, National Basketball Association. His name is CJ McCollum.
Uh-huh.
And he's a point guard, shooting guard for the Portland Trail Blazers. So he started off as a high school player freshman year. He was a little over 5 feet, but he was averaging, for the junior varsity team, he was averaging like 25. And then he got called up to the varsity team in high school. But he had the skills, but he was praying for a growth spurt. But whether he got the growth spurt or not, he was going to, really reach for his dream. But that's not the part of this story that's relevant. This is the other part. That when he got to the NBA, he got drafted by a team that already had a star point guard. I mean, this guy was a star and still is. His name is Damian Lillard for the Portland Trail Blazers. Well, when he came to the team as a rookie, he came off the bench. Like he wasn't starting as a point guard like he normally does. He wasn't doing any of that. And so, but he was still certainly a baller. And so what he talked about is that when he would get in a game, he noticed that the star player for the team was cheering for him. He said, so you get in the game, you make a play, you hit a shot, and you look to the bench, and you're trying to see like who your colleagues, what they're doing, how they're reacting, how they're responding, their coworkers are doing. And he said what he noticed about the star player of the team was he practiced as hard as everyone, if not harder. He always showed up as his best, working on his craft. And he celebrated other people's success, particularly his success. And so he kept telling him, like, keep working on your game, man, because you and I are going to be starting in the backcourt for this team. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm just a rookie. He's like, trust me, we're going to be starting. I like the way you move. Not just the way you move on the court, but the way you move through life, how you carry yourself with integrity. You have a peaceful vibe about yourself. Like, it's like, I'm watching you and I just know we'll mesh on the court. So he just always remembered that lesson. And so what it made me think about was before I started doing the practice, was there any part of me that was envious or jealous of other people's success? And for the most part, I celebrated other people's success. But there were instances in which that Keith 1.0 would show up. And how it would show up is like, let's say that I am up for a position or promotion, and somebody else gets it, then and we were colleagues before, there's a part of me that in at least one instance that didn't celebrate the other person's success. I mean, we weren't exactly, this other person and I weren't friends, but I was so attached to getting the position that part of me was even like judging whether or not they were more qualified than I was, just all that ego nonsense instead of just showing up as my best. And I just always celebrated the people that they're not looking to change jobs, change positions. They're just seeing it as an opportunity to grow and to be completely supportive of whoever gets position, whether their skill level is sufficient or not. That's not your path. Your path, in this case, I'm talking to myself. My path is to continue to be my best and show up as my best, no matter who I'm working with, who I'm being led by, who I'm serving. I want to show up as my best. I want to be on the sidelines every step of the way, cheering everybody's success on. And it's easy when it's people that you like. It's more challenging when your ego says, we don't like that person for whatever reason. And this has shown up me in so many ways, Rick. I mean, I remember when it comes to election season and a candidate that I don't like, I mean, full disclosure, like, I'm hoping their policies fail, and now I've changed it about not being about their policy, but now it's about whatever policy are in place, they are for the greater good of everyone. And so then it becomes not about a person or about a position. It becomes, to me, for something that has a higher purpose and higher meaning. So I've just really made it, this practice has helped me be just an amazing teammate and colleague on the sidelines, whether it's a position that I vied for or not. And I think I'm living into that, man, thankfully, because of the practice.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. I think what strikes me about the idea of cheering other people on is that doesn't it feel great to get outside yourself?
Yes.
I notice when I do things for other people, especially if they don't know I've done something nice for them, like the traditional buying the coffee or breakfast or lunch or whatever, and somebody behind you at McDonald's, right? So
Yeah.
they'll never know you did it, right? But it's kind of cool, it feels great. So that feeling is very similar, I think, to what you're talking about when you're cheering other people on.
Yeah.
That's my alarm, not my alarm, my gong clock that I just hung. It's an heirloom from the family, so it has a prized place in my place.
Oh, awesome.
So I think the idea is that if you let go of all of the stuff of the expectation of being rewarded and all of the hurt for maybe being passed over or sitting on the bench, and you really focus on the other person's success or the success of your team that he's on the team with you, those things take over. And I don't think you actually feel better. I don't think you lose anything. You feel like you're contributing to something beyond yourself. And that always feels so great. So I guess my thought is that, cheering other people on is not so hard. It's just like anything else with the practice. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of patience with yourself and a lot of just doing it. You fake it till you make it. You continue you continue to say, this is something that I really, really want to believe in. I want to be in my life.
Yeah, I totally agree, Rick. And, it's not only just relegated to like promotions and trying to get a job or a position, but it's also, I think, applicable to being part of a project. I remember one instance in which I was going to be part of I was asked to participate in a project. And we brainstormed it out and stuff like that. And then they came back to me and, I felt like I contributed significant ideas to the project. And they came back to me and said, hey, listen, we're going to go in another direction. Like, you're not going to be as involved in it as we initially committed to. The ego, woo, the ego didn't like that. But I was aware of it. Like, literally, I was up against those edges. And it took me, man, it probably took me a couple of weeks, man. This happened a few years ago. So I'm deep into practice, but it took about a couple of weeks for me to kind of like I don't like using willpower for me, because it's finite. So what I did was I just deepened myself in the practice. Every time it came up for me, that feeling, I would notice it, and I would work on detaching from it. And what was interesting is that because I was resisting what their choice was and not being supportive, I found that I was creating these imaginary barriers between myself and my colleagues who were going to continue to take the project in a different direction. Which now I'm so glad that it happened that way when I got on the other side of it. But I was putting up these barriers. And what the barriers were that whenever we talked over the phone or when a meeting, you could tell that they were hesitant with interacting with me. Like, they didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to do it. And I created that for them, because I was withdrawing from them because I felt that it was going in a different direction than I thought we, one, had agreed upon. That's what the ego says anyway. And two, that I was really attached to it being a certain way. And my spiritual journey the practice was, again, attachment. That attachment will cause you more suffering than almost anything else, man. How
are you able to let it go? This is something that was important to you. So how did you let it go? What did you do?
I just came back to a couple of things that always remind me of like what I'm here for. And the
Mm.
first thing was I want to be liberated. And I felt the suffering that came with not being as connected to my colleagues. At any time this was brought up, I felt this psychological pain. And I don't want to live a life like that to where I'm restricted. And then number two, this always gets me back on track. And I didn't say this early on when this first happened. I just say to myself, you're a servant. That's it. And no matter what happens, the titles, you get credit for this, people praise you or give you compliments for that or acknowledge you, which is nice. I do appreciate it. But at the end of the day, you are a servant. You're not above taking out the trash. You're not above sweeping the floor, like none of that. Your job, period, is to serve.
What do you?
As soon as I come back to that, Rick,
Yeah.
the suffering
Yeah.
dissipates immediately.
Because it's outside of yourself. You know, if you're
Completely.
focusing always on yourself, you're always going to have these issues.
Completely.
As soon as you get out of yourself and you like serving other people, that goes away. Even if you don't mean it, it lifts a little bit. And what I was saying about fake it till you make it is the idea that if you like this idea, give it a try. And even if you don't feel like you want to congratulate somebody else or be, supportive of them, just say you are in your head. And even though you're saying, it's a lie, I don't know, but try it out, because I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And there's nothing to hang on to. There's just nothing to hang on to. I was going to ask you, while you were saying that about being a servant, do you think, Keith, that in your personal experience, that being a servant has like a beginning, a middle, and an end to it? And the reason I ask is because people that watch this are at different places in their lives. You know, they could be early on and really competitive in their field, or they could be sort of the kids are about to go to college and things can change a little bit, or they could be old and retired and thinking about what I want to do instead of serving. How would you address that, serving at different times in your life? Do you think it changes, or is it always a constant?
For me, it depends on what's important in your life. And for me, what's important in my life is being liberated from suffering and having inner peace. And what I found is
service. That's what service does for you.
Service does it for me because I'm not internally focused. I mean, my attention is, as you mentioned wisely, is when I'm focused on like when you say I'm achieving and I'm doing this, and there's people. I want to also qualify what serving is. There's a difference between serving that is disguised by serving yourself. Here's an example. You go out and you feed the homeless. That's for the homeless. You go out, feed the homeless, and then post on social media that you fed the homeless. That's for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference. That's the difference. So for me it's like not needing the credit. Like right. If someone does acknowledge the contribution that I made, I'm humbled by it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve. So that has really been a theme. And in my life, when serving wasn't my core value and it like my ethical framework about how I move through life, suffering was somewhere in the mix somewhere. There'd be highs and there'd be lows, but it was there. Since I have made this my core value over the last 7 years, I don't have bad days. There's some days that are like euphoric and the joy level maybe higher, but in terms of the day, there's no bad days. There are days where I get to exercise my practice more, and stuff like that. But there's still good days because I'm experiencing Kaizen, just a little bit more, just a little bit better than I was the day before, but no steps back after you introduced me to Kaizen. So, and I would love for you to define that for everybody in just a second, for people that are new to the show and may not have seen that podcast about Kaizen. But when service is at my core, it makes it easier for somebody else to get a position, or they're invited to do the project, and I'm asked to not be excluded from it, but just to give my energy to it in a certain way. And that way may be accepting it and not being physically involved in it, but I'm just accepting it and I am sending positive vibes and energy to it. But because through service, I go to them and say, hey, listen, is there any way I can support this? If so, please let me know how. I want to contribute in whatever way that might be helpful to the project. And be totally like with that. So service for me, that light is always on. Like it never shuts off. If it even flickers, suffering's coming in. So I keep that fire burning. That candle is always lit. It's always lit.
When people hear you say service, I remember how I was in the old days, and I would be thinking, oh my God, serving other people. I got so much stuff I have to do for myself. That's not it. That's not what we're talking about. Serving means basically that you're putting other people in the same category as yourself, and you're doing what you can to help the others without taking credit and without doing anything that's going to cause them to like you more. You're doing it for the pure altruistic joy of helping another person. And because of that allows you, that allows the suffering that you normally have about, whoa, do they like me? Did I get credit? Am I a good person? Are people recognizing it? All that goes away, and you don't need any of that. And it makes you feel worse because you're always wondering those questions. But when you're serving, it's not even an issue. It doesn't come up. Isn't that your experience?
That's totally been in my experience with serving. And it just comes from such to me, just a pure place. And I've been fortunate to be around people my whole life who do that.
Yeah,
there are people that serve in so many capacities, man, for the greater good, that are in the political field, believe it or not, in the political field, or they are doing nonprofits, or they are for companies that are for profit, that are doing some fantastic things that are serving. But it doesn't just have to be what you're doing. It could be what you're being.
That's right.
I can come into a space that is typically toxic, and my energy of complaining about the situation, what's not fair, what's wrong about these decisions, could just amplify the toxicity that's already there. Or I could serve in a different capacity, that I come in with just joy, with peacefulness, with just a healthy energy. I'm serving in that space there.
That's a wonderful point. The idea that your being is centered and calm and compassionate and full of love for everyone. You don't have any judgment. That is the kind of person we all want to be around. It's hard to be that person, but that kind of person is the one that really makes a difference in the world.
Oh man, Rick, thank you so much, man. And it's the practice. Like you've seen Keith 1.0. Like he doesn't roll like that. He doesn't move through life like that. Keith 2.0, who's inspired by the practice, moves like that. And I've said this before when I'm talking to my friends at Mayo Clinic and people ask me like, what do I do? I said, dude, I got the coolest job in the world. I walk around this whole hospital and I just sprinkle kindness all over the place. And here's the thing, like on paper, you look at me and you're like, this guy's a wellness specialist. What does he do? Jumping jacks and push-ups all day? Okay, yeah, but I'm sprinkling kindness while I do it. Oh, what does that guy do? Oh my God, he works in nutrition services, but that's his side hustle. What he's really doing is spreading kindness all over.
That's it. It's the side hustle.
What is she doing? Oh, she's like a top cardiothoracic surgery. She works in ICU. What do? Well, they work over in research, but that's their side job. You're missing the point. They're sprinkling kindness all over this place. Like that's the service.
When you're the neurosurgery chair, that's just your title. That's your side hustle.
That's your side hustle. No, you spread kindness around this place.
I love that.
That's how we serve, man. Every space we go into, man. Think about how you could increase your effectiveness, productivity, your efficiency, your capacity to serve the whatever the mission is. How much more effective you could be. Lights out, Rick. Like people ask me, like, Keith, I know you got a lot on your plate and you got to be exhausted, but I'm not. And here's why. I'm watering these plants every day, Rick. These seeds, I'm just watering them with this kindness, man. It is boundless. It's boundless, and I take care of myself so that I can continue to do this. My bedtime is on lockdown. My nutrition is stellar. what I take into my consciousness with news, social media, all that stuff. Like, dude, I'm like, it's a healthy life, man. It's a healthy life. So, you know, if people see me and they're like, man, you know, Keith, like, how does he show? Like, I'm surprised that he showed up, like, you know, kind all the time. You should be surprised if I don't show up this way. As much work as I put into this, that should be the surprise. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, you know, Michael Jordan missed that shot. I'm shocked too. There's much work he puts into his game, but there will be blips where there'll be a turnover. I'll drop a ball, but on balance, I'm going to be pretty locked in. And it's going to be effortless.
Effortless, great word. After the practice becomes the groove, it is effortless.
100%.
You know, it hasn't been your experience also that when you are really focused on serving and being kind to other people, you see the best in other people. You know, when you're really great and people know that you're being altruistic about your love for them or for what you're doing and not being judgmental, people open up and people become who they really are. And you see, when you're practicing that way, you see the best coming back to you. So it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy where you put, the more kindness you put out, the more comes back to you. And you can't have the kindness with a hook, like I'm being kind because I want my picture in the paper. You know, it can't be about an ego-based behavior. It has to be about something that's altruistic, that's there to help, and it's there without any burden of contribution coming back to you. And once that happens, hell, you're getting reinforced all the time. People just can't wait to see, oh, Keith Jones, let's talk about, you know, I'm sure that's how your life is. It's like you go around the Pope-mobile, you know, waving to people and they're all happy to see you because you bring such happily to them, right?
And we're all, everybody's in a Pope-mobile with me, like we're in that. So yeah, man, it's really cool too. You brought up a really good point before we close out. And that point is that when I'm like, when I'm informed by the practice, and ego is, you know, has been silenced, then I see people differently. And what's not going on in my head is I'm cheering for them and I'm seeing the good, as opposed to, I would have done that differently, or what they wear, or, you know, how they said something. Like, oh my God, like that presentation, they need to work on. I really recommend a public speaking class for them. Like, I got none of that's going on, man. I'm just like, wow, man, that was so rich. That was so good. I'm so glad I'm open, because I wouldn't have said it that way. And they really nailed that down. Or what a great perspective. It's so much different, and it adds a richness and fullness that what I would have done wouldn't have done that. Like, I'm just, like you said, I'm able to see the good. I'm able to see who they're being, how they're showing up, the life that their work is taking on, instead of criticizing it. You know, it's liberating, man. And it's so much fun. And trust me, if anybody's been in this position to where they've had trouble accepting someone, receiving a promotion, a job, a project, or being asked to serve in a different capacity, trust me, it's so much more fun to be cheering for the success of that person and that project than it is to be suffering through complaining about what didn't happen, what should have happened, or begrudging the other person. It's so much better to be on this side. Your mind will tell you that you don't agree with the choice, or you don't agree with the way that they lead. Let that go. Like, let all of it go, man. And on the other side of that, peace and bliss.
And joy. Yeah, for sure. I love you, Keith. Great job, man. You're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you too, Rick. Thank you.